For generations, men were told to tough it out, go at it alone, and never show weakness. But that script is breaking down now. Today's guest has dedicated his life to helping men shed the lone wolf armor and discover true strength through embodiment and connection. He's guided countless men to find purpose, deepen intimacy, and stand tall in who they really are instead of who they were told to be. He's a men's embodiment coach, group facilitator, and a certified No More Mr. Nice Guy coach. Please welcome Jason Lange.
Yeah, so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, AJ.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah,
so
I've been looking forward to this conversation.
I would like to kickstart the conversation with this question. What does nice guy mean to you?
Yeah, so nice guy. Like you said, I'm a trained, certified No More Mr. Nice Guy coach, which that particular phrase comes from the book No More Mr. Nice Guy, which was written by my friend and mentor, Dr. Robert Glover. And the idea with the nice guy is it's really a man who puts everyone else's needs in front of his own. Mm-hmm. And so nice guys are often very friendly, want to play it safe, but often have a very hard time setting boundaries, bringing forward anything that might cause conflict, and in a large part, basically expressing their own needs and desires. Right. So nice guy is a particular kind of codependency. So not all codependents are nice guys, but all nice guys are codependents, so to speak. Wow. And it's, Dr. Glover, who wrote the book, which for many men is kind of an aha book about how they've been living their lives and not really getting the things they want. The book sells more copies every year since it was released. So it's getting more and more popular. And at a kind of cultural level, I think part of what explains the nice guy is for a long time, masculinity and men were kind of the traditional domineering my way or the highway kind of energy. Right. And that started to shift a little bit in the last decades where many men became aware, wow, guys can be destructive, right? When it comes to the environment, when it comes to women, when it comes to all kinds of things, the economy. And then a lot of those guys were raised by women who were hurt by men and were raised in a culture, particularly even more so now for the younger generations post Me Too, that have really highlighted, wow, men can be a harmful force. And so there's a whole kind of type of guy that developed in response to that of basically, I don't want to be that guy. I never want to make someone uncomfortable. I never want to take advantage of them. Right. Frankly, I don't want to be a dick. I want to be a nice guy. The problem with that is how nice guys attack that, like I said, is they forego their own needs and desires and wants and boundaries in order to try to always appease the other person they're with, particularly in intimate relationships, but really in any kind of connection. And what that leads to is these men often feeling taken advantage of, being frustrated, and not really getting the success they want in their careers or intimate relationships. So, all that said, here's what I'll say. I love nice guys. I'm a nice guy. There's actually no problem with being a nice, kind-hearted person. All we're really addressing in this work now is if that's coming at the expense of yourself, so if you're not actually standing up for yourself as much as you might other people, that ultimately doesn't work, right? And it's not fair to anyone involved. So the idea is you can still be kind, but we want to make sure we're connected to ourselves. We're clear about what we want. We're not afraid of confrontation. We can set boundaries, and our needs matter too.
Right. And what's the worst consequence of being a nice guy?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the biggest one often is failure of relationships. So these kind of codependent relationships. I mean, nice guy syndrome, for better or worse, can really be captured in the platitude a lot of us have heard of happy wife, happy life. And it sounds cute when you hear it, but the truth is it doesn't work. And even most women get really frustrated when
Yeah,
they feel men just constantly appeasing, not standing up for themselves, and having no strong center or sense of self. And so relationships will often fall apart. And what I've seen in the work I've done is, again, one of the telltale signs of nice guys is they don't have a capacity to set boundaries. So what
right,
they tend to attract are partners who also don't honor boundaries, but from the other
right.
direction, oftentimes they might be extra volatile. Oftentimes, I've seen nice guys end up with partners who have BPD, borderline personality disorder, and it creates like a real kind of wacky relationship that really doesn't work for either person. But so I see nice guys struggle in relationship. I see their own sense of self-worth and self-esteem struggle. Nice guys often carry deep levels of insecurity and shame about I'm not good enough. So I got to make everybody else happy in order to win and earn love. And then in work, right? Nice guys will often have a hard time saying no. So they'll take on more and more and more, but they'll have a hard time speaking up for themselves and really asking for what they want. Of like, hey, I'm happy to do this, but I need to be compensated. Or no, I'm not working this weekend. Nice guys really often struggle in that. And so they'll end up working more and get rewarded less.
Yeah, something that you mentioned that hits so true to me is happy wife, happy life. That's some part of me always felt like that is such a bad phrase because if you are inherently saying that only one part of the couple needs to be happy for the marriage to work, that's a lack of balance. That's a really problematic statement.
Yes.
You're basically trying to enforce this narrative that just make the other person happy, that's enough. And then you can be happy. And that's all you need to do. And that is such a sad situation. And often, what I have found happens is the people who cannot speak about their needs, it frustrates their spouses, it frustrates their relationships
Hmm.
because, or their partners, because the partner feels like, if you cannot express your needs to me, how are
Yeah,
you going to express it to someone else when I need you? How are you going to be
exactly.
there for me? How am I going to feel like I can depend on you? And if I really can't depend on you, when the time comes, where is the partnership? Is it just you depending on me?
Yeah, you can kind of summarize this and write a man who abandons himself constantly can't be trusted to not abandon the people in his relationship. So the experience often from the other side in relationship is, wow, if you can't stand up for yourself, how can I trust you to stand up for me? So that's
Right.
a huge part of the problem in that phrase, as is even the idea of happy, right? Because happiness is something that comes and goes. Sometimes we can do the same thing and we feel happy and we don't. I
Yeah.
actually think happy is kind of a crappy marker
Yeah.
for well being, particularly of a relationship. What I tend to emphasize rather than happiness is fulfilled. So, fulfillment is this feeling of, okay, this is worth it. But the key difference is it's not always happy. I'm not always happy when I'm at the gym or working out or doing something difficult or having a challenging conversation with my spouse or saving money over a long term, right? But it's fulfilling in that it gets to and fulfills a deeper desire in me that day to day might not always be pleasant, but right, if I take care of my health or my finances or my relationship, yeah, sometimes it might not feel great, but I'm like, it's very fulfilling to be in this, even though we're in a really challenging moment right now. So it's both the frame of happy, because that comes and goes, right?
Yeah.
What makes you happy one day won't make you happy the next day. So it's already a losing battle. And
Right.
like you said, if we're constantly abandoning ourselves trying to appease our partners, it doesn't work. They cannot trust us.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. The the part that really caught like this really caught my attention, and you started off our podcast with this, that it's a form of codependency. And I've never
Yeah.
heard it being put like that. And I want to understand what made you say that and what's the perspective around that.
Yeah, again, for a lot of nice guys, what drives it is a deep inner feeling of, I have to do something to earn love and to be worthy of relationship, or in particular. And so if you're not okay, if you're not happy, if you're not approving of me, my self identity falls apart and I don't feel worthy. I don't feel good about myself. My wellness is dependent on how you view me. So I'm going to constantly try to make you happy, right? Which again often means then I just go along with what you want. I don't set my boundaries. I don't speak up. And then I end up getting frustrated. I've withheld so much. My needs aren't being met. And that just spirals downhill really fast. And it really hits at a nervous system level, right? I've had to do this work. The men I work with in Nice Guy Recovery have to do this of becoming okay. If our partner isn't feeling well or is dysregulated or is upset with us, that doesn't mean we're not okay. I can get feedback. She can be angry at me. She can be upset with me, in my case, with my wife. And I know I'm a good man, doing the best I can as a husband. My whole identity doesn't have to be wrapped up in your approval, in particular in heterosexual relationships, which I tend to work with the most because that's just what I know. Again, anytime we're seeking approval from our woman, they don't trust it, because it's like, wait,
Yeah.
to you need me to approve of you for you to believe in yourself? No thanks. Like that doesn't feel trustable or solid to me, right? This is where, I sometimes talk about this idea. There's this common misconception that, women only want jerks. They want the kind of macho
Yeah.
man. Oh,
Yeah.
why do they always go for the bad boy and not the nice guy? And it's not that they want jerks, but they do want men who are self-assured, who rest in knowing what they have to offer. Now, the kind of bad guy jerk side of things, those guys are just, unaware. They're not even aware of their
Yeah.
impact, right? They just go for what they want in that sense. But what we're talking about on the other side of nice guy syndrome is, oh, I know who I am as a man. I know I'm a good man. I know why I'm a good man. I know what I have to bring to a relationship. So if you're not happy with me right now, that's okay. Or
Yeah.
if you don't want to date me right now, that's okay, because I know what I have to offer. And paradoxically, the fact that we don't need their approval actually makes us even more attractive from that lens, because it's like, oh, this guy knows who he is. He knows what he
Yeah.
wants, right? He's solid in himself. And that is very attractive to the feminine.
Yeah. Have you heard of Tony Robbins' 8 levels of consciousness? Actually, it's not by him. He learned it from, I think, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela. Have you heard of that one?
You'd have to refresh me. I'm sure it would link up with some other things I know, but
Yeah. So basically, it says that people are in 8 different stages in their life. So the first stage is when you're born, you basically cannot take care of yourself,
yeah.
and you're completely dependent on people around you. You're basically a baby. Everything's about you. You just want to be taken care of. It's all there. The second stage is called purple, where you're living in more fear, and your security comes from being a tribal person. The third level is someone who graduates from that and goes to, it's all about me. They're not afraid anymore, but they've transitioned to being it all being me. It's ego and that kind of thing. And then there are a few more levels that go up where people get into, okay, I don't want it to be about me, now I want to serve others, but they find that rules will help them, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
And then
yeah.
there are,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah.
This is actually drawn from developmental theory
Right,
and
right.
developmental consciousness. So there's
Yeah.
lots of different models for this, but it's
Yeah.
basically the idea that people develop, right? We all see it, and it's really obvious in kids, but it turns out it goes through adulthood, and there's
Yeah.
levels of development we can grow
Yeah.
into, which involve the complexity of our awareness, in a
Yeah.
sense. And I know this most through things like spiral dynamics and Robert Keegan, but there's lots of
Yeah.
different models. But
Yeah.
basically there's pre-rational, rational, and post-rational, and then you can divvy that up in a lot of different ways. But what part of where this can link together with nice guys is the other big thing people talk about these days, right, is attachment theory. So attachment to our primary caregivers and relationships. And that really starts with all of us, with our caregivers, whether it's our specific parents or not. And the way I've seen this play out, in particular with nice guys, is when we're born, we have two needs. We have a need for secure attachment because we cannot take care of ourselves. Right? Yeah. Humans are actually really unique in that our brains got so big, we had to be born 3 months early. So our gestation cycle is actually a lot shorter than others, because at one point we literally couldn't get out of our mother's wombs. And so there's this whole theory of, the first 3 months of a baby are basically the fourth trimester, because other animals come out and they're way more capable, right? Some of them are walking within minutes. Babies, not at all. Like, we are still literally kind of in the womb when we come out, but they can't see, can't move really a lot, anything like that. But because of that, we come out with this need for secure attachment, right? I need the people around me to want me around to take care of me, because I will die without it. Yeah. And that continues, through childhood in a lot of ways. And so we learn these tools for how do I get people to attach to me. There's hormones that support that. There's eye contact that supports that. Babies' laughs, like all these things that make us want to be near our kids and take care of them. But simultaneous with that drive for attachment, there's the drive for what we call authenticity, or the need to express ourselves in what we actually need, right? No, not that. Yes, this, right? I have a 11-month-old, and this is coming on strong now. He's very clear about, I want to go over here. I don't want to go over here. I want to eat this. I don't want to eat this. And that's really important. The challenge for nice guys comes in, what happens when those two things are in conflict from a young age? So when a child starts to learn, wow, in order to keep the relationship with my mother, often particular for nice guys, but also father, alive, I need to start modifying my behavior to keep that connection alive. Because if I get too angry or fussy or say no, I can tell she doesn't want to be around me, right? And so nice guys from a young age, where things go wrong is what I call around the direction of attunement. Ideally, as an infant, the direction of attunement is the parent, the caregiver, is attuning to you and your needs. I have more capacity, so my job is to get you what you need and keep you safe. Right? But for nice guys, from a very young age, it goes the other way around. Whether it's a volatile father with anger issues, or a borderline mother who sometimes is very loving, sometimes is very shaming and cutting, nice guys have to learn, I need to figure out what my parent caregiver is feeling and then adapt my presence and behavior to them.
Adaptability becomes important.
To keep that flow alive. And so rather than having a strong sense of self, I'm just becoming what you need. And that creates all kinds of developmental problems that nice guys often then have to go back and readdress in some of the work I do with men, right? Around just learning to say no, and learning even to get in contact with, I want this, right? Like, this is what I want, and this is what I'm telling you, or this is what I'm going to go for. And there's quite a bit of development, shored up inside of that.
Okay. And one of the other things I was tying this up to, what happens is a lot of women who feel comfortable with jerks, so-called jerks, they are in the stage where it's all about me, but there's this certainty that they bring with them. There's a confidence where they're like, okay, I'm okay just trying to say what I need, and I don't care what you feel. And there's a level of stability that some people find in that, which is what gets creates the attraction. But it's not common to all people. Maybe someone who's way more mature is not going to find that attractive.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of kind of the macho guy, the highway guy is, my needs matter, I don't care about yours,
Yeah.
right? Whereas a nice guy flips the other way. My needs don't matter. I only care
Right.
about yours. And what we're pointing to is the healthy balance on the other side
Yeah.
of
Exactly.
my needs matter and your needs matter. And we need to navigate this together. If just one of us is dominating, it's not
Hmm.
going to work long term.
Okay. So I'm gonna segue into an online question that I found here. So here's what the question says. I'm working through the book, which is How to Not Be a Nice Guy that you referred. I'm having issues fighting my destructive behavior. More directly with my wife. My wife is a great woman, loving, caring, driven, intelligent, smoking hot. I'm doing dumb shit seeking out approval from other women online. I know the reasons behind it, but I'm struggling with breaking it. Instead of building her up like I should, I get stuck in the manipulative, controlling, and at times damn mean cycle. I need help. What do I do?
Yeah, I'd say you need some coaching therapy and to get into a men's group. There's deeper issues below that. So this is what in the work I do, I call this
Mm-hmm.
shadow work, which is the process of, okay, if we have moments in life where we keep doing something we've identified isn't helpful for us and
Mm-hmm.
can be harmful, and we know we don't want to do it, yet we keep doing it, often there's um, shadow inside of us, which just means some kind of trauma from early in our life that's running some kind of script that we're
Right.
not even aware of, some belief structure of, oh my God, if I get too close to my wife, she'll leave me, or whatever it might be. Or, we'd have to like sit down and really get in there with that guy and get clear about what's he feeling in his body when he starts that, what does it remind him of, and insight could be found pretty fast of, oh yeah, I'm actually afraid of this or this, or I don't
Yeah.
feel good enough, or I don't know how to say no. There's lots of different things around that, but almost certainly there's going to be some patterning from his family system when he was young that
Yeah.
he's just not conscious of, that we would need to bring to the light of day so he can make some different choices.
You know, the great thing about this guy who posted this, it seems like he's really trying to work on the issue. He's
Yeah.
aware of what the problem is. He understands that change is needed. He's just in this whirlpool of situation trying to figure out, okay, I have too much information around me. I don't know what to do.
Hmm. Yeah. Again, he probably doesn't need more information at this point, and he just
Yeah.
needs to slow down and get more connected to his body and become aware of exactly what triggers him in these different moments to go towards the behaviors he doesn't want to go towards, whether that's meanness or reaching out to other women online. It's not like that, just these kinds of things just suddenly happen.
All right.
Usually there's actually a sophisticated sequence of, ooh, I she looked at me this way and that reacted to this part of me that suddenly gets afraid, and da da da, and this whole chain reaction goes off. So a lot of the men's work I do with men is teaching men how to slow down and get into their bodies and connect to their emotions and not just try to override everything with the head, so we can understand what is driving my behavior at the base level. And once we see that and understand that, we can often make some different choices that aren't just coming from the top down. It's shifting what our nervous system believes and feels. And instead of constantly mapping the past onto the present, we teach it to kind of grow up in some sense.
Tell us about your journey. I know you went through a pretty hard beginning where you went through some loneliness and really struggled with how to shift certain aspects of yourself. What was going on? What was your journey, and how did you actually end up shifting this?
Yeah, totally. My journey really starts as, I was raised lower middle class in the Midwest of the United States, a white guy in the 80s and 90s. And in the suburbs, my family basically had all of the basic security needs met. So, we had good house, we had good food, we didn't have that kind of instability. It wasn't that it was easy, but that wasn't the main thing. But what I quickly discovered as I got older was my family did not know how to connect, both physically and emotionally. So there was
Mm,
almost no touch in my house growing up, and there was no emotional expression or really discussion of anything underneath the surface. It was kind of like we were all just in the same house, didn't really talk too much about our internal worlds or what we were experiencing. And what that led to was when I became a teenager, I'm heterosexual in this case, so I became interested in women, and I would just get totally frozen. I wouldn't know how to talk. I literally wouldn't know how to get words through my mouth to talk to them and share things like,
Wow, that
"Hi,
must have
who
been
are
so
you?"
tough.
It would like create a distress in my body, and I would ruminate really heavily, and I would kind of get sweaty and anxious, and essentially I didn't know how to connect. And then simultaneously, while I struggled a lot with women, I met some good male friends, but I noticed they just related to each other differently than me. They would horse around, they would play with each other, they would wrestle. I just didn't have that wiring in my system at all. And as time went on and my friends started having successful relationships and I didn't, it got really painful and I got really lonely. And the longer it went on, the more embarrassed and shameful I got about it. Till I was basically in college before I even kissed a girl, didn't have sex till my mid to late 20s. And I was so ashamed of being a virgin and not having any experience that even good friends who liked me, I just didn't feel comfortable talking about it. So it created a tremendous amount of isolation and discontent and kind of a numbness in my body and a kind of deep sense of self-loathing, or there wasn't something, something in me was broken. And it wasn't really until my early mid-20s, so around 24, that I was like, yeah, I really got to change this. And I went out looking for help and eventually got into my first men's communities, started my first somatic therapy, and started to put all the pieces together about how basically the experiences I had had as a young child didn't really wire my body to know what touch was and for it to feel safe and comfortable. And so I had to do a lot of work to bring that back online and to become comfortable with that. And particularly in the context of deepening first with other men in men's circles and men's groups, I then started to learn to get into my body, to express emotionally and feel these, for me, these younger pieces of that were in distress from just not having any connection or co-regulation for when I was a kid, that lo and behold would still show up in me as an adult male. I would act like a little kid that was really scared when I was around women. And so I learned to grow up those parts of me and just, never stopped in some extent. And so passionate about helping men now, in particular helping other guys that are struggling with relationships in particular. I really help supporting them finding that truth inside themselves and feeling comfortable inside themselves so they can create the relationships and experiences they really want.
Yeah, I can't imagine how tough that must have been, what you went through, because once you add shame and judgment on top of what you're already going through, that becomes a really heavy journey. And I can imagine what that loneliness would have felt like. What was the journey of undoing all this? What was the hardest part? What was the unexpected parts of it? And how did you start to actually rewiring yourself?
Yeah, it started for me, the shadow work I now lead. I worked with an older man who taught me this, and he was I had been in maybe a year and a half of talk therapy, and it was useful, but I was pretty sophisticated in my protection mechanisms and, could kind of talk around my therapist and not really go deep. And I did a weekend with this man who led a men's group in Innocence, and he kind of, when the attention came on me in the circle, started doing the process he kind of leads men through. And within about 5 minutes, I was laying down flat on my back, had my hands up in the air saying, hold me, hold me, hold me, please just touch me, basically crying like a 2-year-old. And my whole body had this huge emotional release where I reverted, to a young toddler infant and became in my body aware of how much neglect I had experienced in terms of just not feeling connected to my mother in this case. And then lo and behold, that as that started to shift and I became aware of that and learned to actually get in touch with those feelings and express them and let them out, my relationship to women really started to change over the next couple of years. And I stayed on that path of doing that kind of shadow work, learning to get in touch with my body, my anger, my sexuality, my grief, and way more comfortable about expressing shame and talking about what I was feeling and whatnot. And for me, that mainly happened in men's work. In men's community is where I just really felt safe to do that. And in learning to become more emotional, in essence, with other men and to feel what I was actually feeling in my body, lo and behold, it was much easier to go out there and connect with women because a lot of it is just being connected to your body. Okay, right now I'm attracted to her. I want to talk to her. Right now I want to kiss her. So I'm going to kiss her. I was so numb to a lot of that and would ruminate over it. I would miss a lot of these moments. And then that journey just continued, in terms of learning more about communication and how to create connection through what we call authentic relating. I definitely did a bunch of plant medicines at one point, and then just continued in particular on the trajectory of masculine embodiment. So this process of how do we learn to actually get out of our heads and into our bodies as men, and trained with some other teachers around that, and then met Dr. Glover and got a whole nother frame of what nice guy was and saw, oh yeah, I do that too. I just usually don't actually speak my mind because I don't want to upset other people. And lo and behold, I don't get what I want if I don't ask for what I want. And so all of that kind of wove together. But it really started with just getting connected to myself and breaking through what was for me a pretty deep layer of numbness, of not really being able to access emotions and feel much in my body, even though, eventually I wanted to. I mean, when I was in, my 20s, you would ask, you could ask me how I'm doing. And I mean, basically my range was bad, good, and fine. If you ask me, what are you feeling? That's what I could say. Now, way more nuanced, right? I have much more awareness of what's happening inside me and can much better articulate what my experience is, which lo and behold makes it a lot easier for me to get what I want and connect with the people I care about the most in life.
Fascinating, very fascinating to me. What is shadow work?
Yeah, one of my favorite things. So like we talked about, shadow work is the process of making the unconscious conscious in our awareness and in our bodies. So it's this idea that, right, if I had a big shadow behind me and you're like, hey man, you got this big shadow behind you, and I turn my head, but it's always behind me, kind of like the old Peter Pan thing. Like, it's very hard to often see our own shadows because we are embedded or fused with these elements of ourselves. And what they usually are, when we're young, we have some kind of experiences that adversely impact us. So we adapt our behavior, kind of like nice guys, but in a lot of other ways. We adapt to make sure we don't experience those things again. But oftentimes we'll get so good at the adaptation, we'll forget the belief or the experience that actually created it and is in some ways driving our behavior without realizing it. Like, why do I get so pissed off when another man speaks up in group or something like that, right? We call these triggers or reactivity. There's certain things, places we get really charged up, or we will often really get knocked over too easily and collapse around something. There's some kind of fear. And usually that points to there's some kind of shadow material there. So there was either a moment of anger that wasn't safe to express or boundary, grief that wasn't safe to feel, fear that wasn't safe to feel, disgust, shame. There's some different ones in there that our system didn't quite know how to metabolize in the moment. And so we kind of freeze it in our body, but then it drives our behavior because it wants to make sure we never feel that again. And suddenly we're making all these choices and actions around this stuff that create a lot of fear for us based on these experiences that happened a long time ago. So shadow work is, there's lots of ways to do it, but it's becoming aware of these different parts of ourselves again, making them conscious so we have more choice. So, why is it when things are going really well, sometimes I get really mean toward my wife. Well, okay, something happens to my nervous system that reminds it of some other time, and so it reacts really strongly. So we got to go figure out what that is and learn to work with that in a different way. So shadow work is this really potent process of, as me and one of my teaching partners talk about it, is really becoming more intimate with ourselves. So we really become connected to the nuances of our adaptations, our protective mechanisms, and what drives our behavior. And most often, more than not, what the unfelt, unresolved emotional content that is still kind of lodged in our nervous systems tends to be. And we find ways to work that, to metabolize it, to get through it, so that our body can start to learn to distinguish again. Okay, the past is not the present, and the present is not the past. So just because something starts happening right now doesn't mean it's going to have the same impact on me it had back then. Instead, I can actually get present, take a deep breath, and assess the situation for what it is, not what I fear it might be.
What is the, or let me rephrase this. How interlinked is trauma with shadow work?
Very. I would say trauma is often what pushes things into the shadow, right? Really, all that the idea of trauma is it's some kind of stimulus that's too much for our nervous system to handle in the moment. That's it, right? So it's emotionally overwhelming or physically overwhelming, right? And it actually traumatizes our body. There's like, if I just hit myself a little bit, my body's fine. But if I hit myself 20 times really hard in that same spot, it's going to leave an impact. And there's going to have to be some recovery from that. So, these kinds of emotional traumas, and they don't just mean these huge things. They can, right? There's countless examples of people who are so traumatized that they kind of bury things in their memory, whether it's physical, emotional, or sexual abuse. We see veterans coming back often from serving overseas, lots of trauma, different things like that. Again, it's an overwhelm that the nervous system doesn't quite know how to metabolize. And because of that, it can't fully let go of it. So it's like these experiences get stuck inside our nervous system, and we replay them, and we'll actually create the conditions to experience them over and over and over again if we're not aware of it. And so shadow work is that process of, okay, what happened? And how can I safely create space to repattern that now? So it's very heavily related to trauma. It can also, shadow work in particular, can also be related more to cultural things, meaning we imprint beliefs from our family, our parents, our culture at large, our religion, that we internalize, and we often forget that, oh, this is a belief structure I was taught, but I encoded it as my own inner critic or inner voice. And so a lot of shadow work can also be, oh my God, that way I'm so mean to myself. Turns out that was actually my dad or my third grade gym teacher who just tore into me that one time. These experiences really stay with us when we don't have them, ways to work them. And, there's a lot of research now, and they talk about the interesting thing about the kind of more emotional and spiritual trauma is it actually happens in two steps. There's what happened, and then there's what happens after. And this is particularly big for a lot of men, is two people can experience the same traumatic event. Let's say a very scary car crash, let's just say. But one of them has a deeply present, attuned parent who is emotionally available to them, co-regulates them, allows them to talk about it for days or weeks afterwards, isn't afraid of their body shaking from fear or whatever that might be. And another one, let's say, has nobody. So has no one to talk about it, has no way to contextualize it. That second person will often be way more adversely impacted because they had no one to express and share it with, in a sense. And that in itself then adds fuel to that trauma, in a sense. So, and that's where a lot of guys have trouble because, like me, we've been raised in this culture of masculinity that's always be tough, never show weakness.
Yeah.
Men are a competition. If you give them any ammo, they're going to knock you down and, bully you, take you over, whatever that might be. So most men I work with, walking through life, having a lot of challenges happen, but have nowhere to talk about it. So they hold it all inside. And eventually it starts to fuse with their shame and build up this sense that, yeah, I'm messed up and I can't let anyone know. And I got to do everything perfectly. And that creates so much stress for our nervous systems. And shadow work is one of the paths to kind of liberate men from all of that.
When you were speaking about how important connection is, I was reminded of this clip that I watched. I think it was I don't remember who the speaker was, but they were speaking about addiction. And they did this very, very fascinating experiment with a mouse. A mouse was trapped, and I think you probably know the experiment.
Yeah.
A mouse was trapped with cocaine-dosed water, and it was alone in this cage, and it didn't have anything to do. And pretty soon, it just got so addicted to it that it couldn't stop consuming it, even though I think there was an alternate normal water that was there. And then when the same mouse was, I think, shifted into a place where it had all its friends and it had other things to do, it just stopped going to the cocaine-dosed water. And that's how powerful connection is, because if you have people you connect with, you don't feel lonely, you have other things that actually engage your mind, you're not going to go to the things that are not good for you anymore.
That's exactly it. And that's where so many men in particular, with the direction our culture are going with tech and online and social media and parasocial relationships, men are even more vulnerable to that than most women. Most women just are a little bit better at staying in connection with people and reaching out and asking for help. A lot of that's cultural and, how the culture teaches us. Some of that's hormonal, but these are things we can learn to overcome as men, and is our work right now, particularly as men, is to not suffer alone and to reach out for connection, because co-regulation, which is really what connection is, right? Our vagus nerve, which is the nerve that connects our brain to our body in essence, and is kind of the superhighway between the two, it is created and responds to human connection the most. So eye contact, face-to-face, vocal tone, and breath are the thing that will send the signal, it's okay. It's okay to downshift out of fight or flight. You're safe. And that tells all of our internal organs and systems and things to stress profiles, right? And again, this is something we see so obviously with babies. Baby's distressed, parent picks it up, co-regulates it, a little bit of cooing, rocking, laughing, humming, eye contact, baby settles down again. That same thing happens as adults. Our nervous systems get overloaded and we get unregulated. And the struggle for a lot of men is because they don't know how to talk about their feelings or reach out to other people to get that co-regulation. We turn to things outside of ourselves, other than people, such as porn, weed, booze, sex, overworking, video games, you name it. And ultimately, those things don't actually co-regulate us. They just numb us. They don't change our relationship inside of our body. They just disconnect us from the pain temporarily. And there are plenty of men I've worked with who have gone decades through their whole lives. I've worked with men, in their 50s and 60s who have literally never had the experience of co-regulation with another human being. Just eye contact, breath, face-to-face, whole body relaxes and softens often in ways it never has for them before. And this constant fight or flight, anxiety, rumination calms down. And they're like, oh, this is what it feels like. And that's something that, the good news is can be changed for us men, but we have to seek it out and learn what it is.
Okay, I think it's a great time to shift into a really fun game that I planned for this podcast today. And this is something really new. I haven't done this before. Okay, it's a new format that I created. And the name of the game is, if my son knew about this, what would they think? Right? And basically, here's what it is. as men, so much of what we learn the hard way, either through silence, mistakes, or someone actually needs to teach us. So in this round, I'll give you a few unfinished sentences that start with "if my son knew," and the only reason it's son is because we're speaking so much
Hmm.
about men's work, right?
Yeah.
If my son knew, and you can finish the sentence whatever makes sense from your heart, right? So here's how it goes. Here's the first one. If my son knew how much I once struggled with dash, he'd understand dash.
Yeah, if my son knew how much I once struggled with touch and connection, he would understand the importance of what his mother and I are creating in our family now, of creating a lot of safety, lots of touch, lots of co-regulation, and lots of room for emotional expression.
Do you have a son right now? If
I do, in fact, have an actual son. Yeah,
yeah,
11 months
how does
old.
he respond to touch?
Oh, he loves it. Yeah,
Oh,
he's
that's
11
amazing.
months. He's just about to learn to walk, and he's getting super into wrestling and tussling and like play growling and stuff, and it just makes him so happy.
Oh, that's amazing. Here's the second one. If my son knew what men secretly fear, I'd tell him blank.
Sure, yeah. If my son knew what men secretly fear, I would tell him it's okay to have emotions and feelings. It does not make you weak. Vulnerability of the kind we're really talking about here is a sign of deep strength. The willingness to feel is only something very strong people actually do. It's the men who are afraid of that will create whole ways of being, substances, etc., to avoid the pain of grief, fear, shame, etc. And that the truth is, the man who's willing to feel, in my mind, is always more courageous than the man who's not.
Yeah. And you know what's really amazing? When I read this sentence out right now, some of my mind was expecting you'll speak on the fear aspect. But actually, what you spoke about was the secret aspect, which is amazing, which is actually where the light needs to go. So, thank you for
Mhm.
that. If my son knew what love really takes, he'd stop trying to blank.
If my son knew what love really takes, he would stop trying to find the perfect relationship that makes him happy all the time and instead learn that, the real love is something that's created over time. It's more like a quilt. And every time we have a rupture with our partner and we learn to repair it, another thread gets added. So the connection grows deeper over time. And the love actually becomes stronger and has room for disagreement, ruptures, conflicts, me messing up, my partner messing up. But it's the willingness to keep coming back together and reestablish connection. That's what creates real love, the true love that's very grounded and can last a lifetime and isn't the kind of crazier Hollywood love. I mean, it's really absurd. He'll grow up seeing it too, of this idea of we fall in love, right? It's literally so disorienting. The feeling is I'm falling. I don't
Yeah.
have a center. That's actually to me a red flag versus, oh, yeah, I like this person. I'm really curious to explore it with them. And it's going to take work because every relationship does.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. How did you land onto this insight? I'm so curious.
My own marriage. Yeah, just seeing, 8 years in now, how much work it takes
It's
continually for me to keep growing and her to keep growing. And we have seasons where things feel great. We have seasons where things are crunchy and we feel disconnected. But we know how to move through those together now. And every time we do, our bond grows.
I love this definition that you gave because I it reminds me of the thing that I learned from Mark Manson, the guy who wrote, I think, what Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And the thing he's mentioned that it always sticks with me. It's not the one that's the rosiest picture that you should think about, because everything has issues. The
Yeah.
question is, which problems are you willing to accept? And the reason I bring this up is there's this notion of, oh, I just saw this person and everything was amazing. But the real work actually begins after that infatuation, after,
Yeah.
your hormones have calmed down and now you know what the truth is. Now you get to think about what problems am I willing to work with my entire life.
Yeah, I call this the relationship inflection point. We also call it the honeymoon phase, right? And the
Yeah,
idea is when you first meet a partner, you're driven off hormones and high amounts of what we call polarity in the work I do, which is polarity, right? The most common definition people know is how masculine and feminine energy interact. But the idea is those are just two examples of difference. When we're different, it creates a pull. And so it's like two magnets. If you have a positive end and a negative end, it actually draws them together. If they're too similar, they're either neutral or push each other apart. So when a relationship starts, you don't know each other. You don't know each other's history. You don't know what each
true.
other look like naked. You don't know what each other are like in bed, what your families are like. There's so much unknown that it creates a lot of attraction and eroticism and chemistry of, ooh, I want to know this person, get close to them. And we start with high amounts of that in a relationship, but what we start with a low amount of is intimacy, closeness, trust, understanding each other's patterns and behaviors and background and all of that. But over time, what happens is polarity goes down. Suddenly, I used to just see you for dates and we'd be dressed up and we were sexy. Now I'm spending the weekend at your house and we're going on long trips with each other. Sometimes I'm just wearing my pajamas. Sometimes when we're with each other, we just fall asleep watching TV. Our lives get more intermixed. And so there's less difference and there's more sameness. There's more trust. And the point where they cross, right? You can imagine them like an X.
Yeah.
And so the longer term you are in a relationship, the more sameness there is and the less difference there is. That point where they cross is where all your attachment wounding from your childhood is going to come up, and whatever is unresolved in that will play out with this partner. It's the cold,
True.
honest truth that people want to
Absolute
ignore.
truth.
And for a lot of people, that's the moment they give up. They're like, oh my God, I don't immediately want to make love to my partner anymore, or they're annoying me, or we keep having these fights. Must not be the one. I was wrong. I thought they were the one. They're not the one. So I break up, lose this relationship,
Yeah.
go do it again. And, there's plenty of people who date the same wounds for their entire life until they realize, oh, I have a part to play here. And when you find someone who's willing to play ball on the other side of that, the practice then becomes consciously practicing and cultivating difference and polarity. Big thing I teach men and couples. How do you keep the erotic connection alive long term? And how do we healthily deal with conflict and attachment wounding so we can keep feeling safe with each other long term?
When you actually don't know each other, you can imagine things the way you want it to be. And that,
Exactly.
I guess, partly creates the attraction. You have this fantasized version of the things you don't know about. So there's a blank picture you can fill up.
It's high on fantasy, low on reality.
Yeah.
Over time,
Yeah.
higher on reality, lower on fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, here's the next one. If my son knew how much I've learned from her mother, he would understand blank.
If my son knew how much I've learned from his mother, he would understand why I'm with her. And in terms of all the things we just talked about, how much work a partnership can take and how much fun it can be when you have the right partner who's just, again, like I said, willing to play ball of, hey, this is going to happen with anyone. So yeah, what we're looking for is what are we willing to work on and who's a partner that's willing to work on it for me. And I think he would also appreciate how much work both his mother and I did to prepare for his birth so we could raise him differently than we were raised.
This is a question that just came up for me. If if your son watched this in the future and you had to leave a message for him, letting him know the best parts of the marriage, the best parts of your relationship that he only saw parts of, he saw it from a different perspective, what would you tell him?
I would just tell him that his arrival was the final missing piece to our little family, and we felt complete in a way that we just hadn't until he got here. And it's been a great joy to
Oh, that's so
heal
beautiful.
my own relationship with the masculine and my father through getting to father
Wow.
him.
Wow, that is so beautiful. That's so beautiful. I'm sure he loved hearing this. Here's the final one. Um, if my son knew what strength actually feels like, he would realize blank.
Yeah, he would realize that real strength is the capacity to stay present and make decisions not out of fear, but out of wellness, right? What's going to create the most wellness for me? In that, strength doesn't mean just brute force. Strength also means, wow, I can't do this by myself. I need to ask for help, and look at the abundance of support I have from other men, mentors, spouses, friends, teachers, etc., so that this problem actually isn't much of a problem. It actually becomes an opportunity for me to create more connection. And that kind of strength is so undervalued, I think, particularly for men, that I'm already excited to be showing him a different way.
That's amazing. That was really fun. I got to learn so much from it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
loved it.
Here's my other question to you. What does masculinity truly mean to you?
Yeah, masculinity, I think, is the part of all of us that can see what's happening and wants to take the perspective necessary to create the conditions for the most thriving. It's kind of simple in a sense. So it's the part of us that witnesses and then brings in care and says, what structure could be created that would create the most goodness, truth, and beauty in this moment, whatever it might be. It's a kind of esoteric, but it's the part of us that really can take the deeper, wider perspective and say, okay, we could do this, this, or this, but this is what's going to lead to the best for me, for you, for everyone around us. And that kind of masculinity is a little bit in short supply these days, where people assume it means domination, overpowering, my way or the highway, this kind of old patriarchal authoritarian, I know best, when it's really no. I know best by getting present, connecting with you, listening, assessing the whole situation. So that's kind of the application of it. The deepest, kind of tantric and spiritual side of this, all is masculinity is just the part of us that witnesses. It's just the part that sees. That's it. It's the part that sees. And the more we can bring that healthy version forward in the world right now, the better.
I've always been curious about this. What, do you feel that this trait is restricted to men, or everyone can take this trait up?
Everyone can. Masculinity and femininity are just energies. You can call them lots of different things, right? We have yin and yang. We have life and death. We have go and flow. We have masculine, feminine. Some people say alpha and omega. There's witnessing and experiencing. There's perspective and feeling. There's so many. The most basic version. There's the inhale and the exhale, right? Very different things. All human beings, no matter what body they are born in, have access to both of these energies. Male bodies hormonally tend to kind of have men gravitate more towards a masculine disposition, and female bodies tend to have women gravitate to more of a feminine disposition, but that's not always the case. I know plenty of men born in male bodies who are highly feminine. And I know lots of women, right? That's a struggle a lot of guys have these days. Women who have incredible inner masculine. They go for what they want. They create what they want. They have a deep sense of purpose in the world. They have no trouble with goals and achievement and making money. So we all have these capacities and we can all cultivate them. And what we're being called to do in this moment in life is, it used to be, if you were born in a female body, the expectation was you had to be feminine and be a mother. And that's what your lot in life was. And that's changing, just like it's changing for men. Men can become caregivers now. We can be stay-at-home dads. What's being asked for is fluidity, is understanding. Okay, we all have these capacities inside of us. Some of us feel a little more restored and recharged in one than the other side. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people are more balanced, but we want to understand how these energies interact so we can be the most effective and create the healthiest relationships we want in the world. But yeah, I've done a lot of work to get in touch with my own inner feminine, my capacity to feel, to enjoy, to be in flow, to not always be mapping and thinking. My partner has an incredible masculine. She leads groups all the time, holding space for people, running her own kick-ass business. We all have these inside of us. And it's a beautiful thing, right? These are incredible energies we can draw on.
This is a fun question. Can a man with incredible feminine capacity have a great relationship with women with incredible masculine capacity?
100%. Yeah. You got to think of it more as physics than anything else. Right? Again, the chemistry comes from the difference. Mm-hmm. If both partners are too same, that's where it ends up being a turn off or not attractive. But yeah, totally. And even the energetics of that, it's more nuanced these days, and it's less like occasionally. I know some people who are just incredibly masculine in every level, and some women that are incredibly feminine in every mix of that. But a lot of us, it's a lot more nuanced. There's the presentation of our physical body. Is that more masculine or feminine? There's our identity inside that. There's our emotional self. Is it more masculine or feminine? There's how our mind works. Is it more masculine or feminine? There's the spiritual. Is it more masculine or feminine? So it's more like kind of at each chakra, in a sense, we can tilt one way or the other. And again, you just need to find someone who mostly reciprocates you in pretty intelligent ways. So it actually doesn't matter. A lot of guys will come to me and they'll discover they have a very strong feminine emotional body. They're deep feelers. They're deeply impacted by other people's emotions. Their emotions are all over the place a lot of times. They're like, oh my God, does this mean I'm never going to be able to attract a woman? It's like, no, not at all. You just have to be aware of it so you can magnetize and work with a partner around that. And for some guys, all that means is, I bring kind of that unstable, highly expressive, constantly changing emotional self. I bring that to the men in my men's group, and then I actually get more regulated and come back in that more traditional kind of emotionally masculine place, which supports my feminine partner. So any combination is possible. It's one of the exciting and challenging things about relationship these days. It's way more nuanced than, our parents and their parents' generation was, you were born with this genitalia. This is what you're supposed to do, and just find someone who is different than that. And, that's enough. It's not enough anymore. It's way more complex now.
I find it intriguing that we stick to the name masculinity, femininity. I personally feel because of the way our understanding of these energies have evolved, they don't need to be named that way anymore. Because inherently the name creates a form of restriction and this perspective that it should go towards one side. But now that our learning has evolved, anyone can adopt this. And I feel it's time for a name change.
Yeah, lots of people are playing with that in a lot of the different circles I'm in, because there is so much cultural baggage around masculine and femininity and patriarchy and all that kind of stuff. But, the one most people get, I think off the bat that is useful, is a pretty strong correlate, is yin and yang energy. And
Yeah.
even the beauty
Yeah.
of that symbol is right in the middle of the
Yeah.
yang side, there's yin energy. And right in the
Yeah.
middle of the yin
Yeah.
side, there's yang energy, right?
Yeah.
It's more complex than you're either this or that. It's just, like we said, where's kind of your home base? What's the gift you're yearning to give, and what's the gift you're yearning to receive?
Awesome. Where can people find more information about you, and what should they be checking out first?
Yeah, so you can check out me, and I have my own podcast where I teach about a lot of this stuff at evolutionary.men. So it's not .com, but it's .men, and you'll see my podcast of the same name on there. And basically my jam is I believe every man should be in a men's group. So most of my programs are about getting men connected to other men in community. And I have men's groups around dating and relationships. If all this polarity stuff talk interested you, you can join that. It's called Pillars of Presence. I have a men's group just around shadow work, which is all about doing that deep, intense shadow work to really liberate ourselves. That's called the Heart of Shadow. And then I have just the taster of you just want to experience the power of male connection and community. And that's called Men's Group Experience, where you just 12 weeks, 5 other guys, you go really deep and get to have the powerful experience of what a men's group is firsthand. And so lots of ways to kind of different to participate. But again, my thing is get into a men's group. It doesn't even have to be with me or anything I'm doing. Find something in your area. Take your connection with other men deeper in your life, and things will get better. It won't get easier, but they'll get better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, here's my final question. Let's say you can carry 3 truths eternally with you. No matter what happens to your body, no matter what happens to you, 3 truths from your journey so far you can remember. What 3 truths would you want to remember and pass on potentially?
Presence matters more than anything else. You can't take anything with you other than love. And turn towards the things that scare you the most. And you will live a very vital life.
Awesome. That was incredible. Thank you so much for gifting us your time and all you've learned so far.
My pleasure. So good to be here with you. Really enjoyed it.
I had a great time. Thank you.